We are doing a very impromptu video. This actually was not the video I was going to be posting when you watch this. And the reason for that is I just had this feeling in me that we really needed to talk about tech layoffs. I mean, everywhere you look, everywhere you speak to someone even, you are probably going to hear about tech layoff. And I don't know about you, but for me, as someone who works in tech, the last few weeks, especially this past week, I would say has made me feel a little bit, I don't even know what the words are, a little bit strange, a little bit uncomfortable, if you will. And I thought, you know what? It's time we talk about it. Now, I'm not going to lie, I went into 2024 kind of naive, if I'm being totally honest with you, looking back. I thought, you know what, 2023 was a really brutal year for tech, especially with so many layoffs. We're going into 2024. Experts are saying, no, we're not going into recession. The economy is going to be okay. And I just had this optimistic point of view that going into this year, tech would just kind of sort itself out, only to, start opening my laptop in January and very quickly see all the different tech layoffs going on at these big tech companies. I mean, okay, I have Crunchbase open up and I want to share with you some stats. So layoffs during the week ending in January 19th, so literally ending in last Friday, there was at least 2,200 US tech sector employees that were laid off. That was just last week, for the record. And in 2024, there's been at least 6,500 workers at US-based tech companies that have lost their job so far. Now, those numbers feel pretty intense. It feels as though everywhere you look, tech companies are laying people off. And it brings up the question, what is going on here? Why are all these companies laying off these employees? Is it really because AI is taking over all of these jobs? Is this what we have to look forward to moving forward? Now, there's two sides to the story. One I want to talk about first, which is what happened during the pandemic, which is when we really saw this rise, this boom within tech. I mean, working in tech was so glamorized, so cool to be in tech. We just thought this was the place to be. People were making very large salaries, especially working in big tech. I mean, massive salaries and major benefits. It just seemed like the place to be. Everyone was flooding into tech and the jobs kept on opening up. Now, on that note, it's really interesting. I was reading a report by, who was it by? I'm just looking it up here, by 365 Data Science, and they attempted to really solve this question around what is going on with all these big tech layoffs. So they did some data analysis on it. One thing I found really interesting, which lines up to the timeline with the pandemic, is the data shows that the median time of an employee to be at the company when they were laid off, for these employees who were laid off, was roughly 2 years, suggesting that in some ways this cup represents essentially a winding back of hiring policies put in place before the pandemic. So it's not necessarily going to say that this theory or this kind of, it's not even a theory, it's more so facts at this point, but this kind of angle suggests that really it was overhiring during the pandemic. Everyone was at home on their computers, tech companies could work from home, and in turn, a lot of them were booming, especially from all the usage. So it made sense they were hiring a lot. Now, okay, great, Tiff. So you're saying it's because of, they overhired, but when is this gonna stop? It seems like they are constantly, it was all through 2023. I mean, actually, another fact about 2023, in 2023, 191 or over 191,000 US-based tech company employees were laid off. I mean, how many roles do we need to cut down that we hired during the pandemic? There has to be more to it than that. Well, there is. All right, let's address the elephant in the room, the technology or thing that helps so many people. And, to be honest, I see so much benefit in, but it definitely is an elephant in this room. I'm sure you know what I'm getting at. It's AI. Is AI taking over our jobs, or a lot of tech workers' jobs? Is that actually happening? Or is it just kind of people saying AI is taking over the jobs? Insert this meme here where it's the dog, I think, holding a coffee cup and everything's burning around him. It's a classic, by the way. But really, is AI taking over jobs? Well, here's what 365 Data Science tried to figure out and used, once again, the data to see if this actually is happening. By the way, I'm using this report because I just find it very interesting from an actual data standpoint. I don't know about you, but I'm sure many of us in the Tiff in Tech community, good thing I can talk, this is what happens when you're filming at 7 p.m. at night. In the Tiff in Tech community, you're very numbers or data driven in different capacities. And for me, understanding the data behind it versus just articles where they were assuming things or making assumptions. Anyways, that's a long story short as to why I'm using the 365 Data Science report. So going down into it, I found it really interesting though, like what types of roles were laid off? And I mean, there was really every type of role. No role has been safe, including software developers. But what they report is that 28% of all layoffs were within HR. And I find this really interesting for a few reasons. I mean, when you think of HR as a whole, it is one area where well, let's not say a lot, but some functions are being placed by automation. A lot of these tools that are coming out around AI that companies are adapting to or starting to integrate really do have a direct impact on HR. We just don't see it as much as individuals who aren't in HR, if you're someone watching this that isn't in HR. And we don't really understand that there are a lot of systems being put in place that can kind of do that manual tasks that were covered by HR. So that is my theory or reasoning as to what is going on with big tech laying off so many individuals. And I needed to have this really logical explanation for it because some days can feel very overwhelming when you're talking to a friend and you hear they know someone who got laid off, or you see in the news every day it feels like different companies laying off employees. It just makes you feel very uneasy. I thought I'd share with you as well some signs as to how you can tell if your company might be starting to do layoffs. One, of course, is a hiring or payroll or promotional freeze. So a freeze across the company, they are not hiring, they are not going to do promotions this year. Different things like that is a very good sign, or a good indicator anyways, that something might not be right. Another area or an indicator that there might be layoffs happening at your company is the company's financial performance. Now, with big tech, this can kind of be hard to have insight into, especially because there's so many different so many different departments. You get what I'm saying. But there's so many different departments that this often isn't transparent. But if you are more at a smaller company or medium-sized company, this is information you should have some insight into. Now, another thing that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but which is a sign that there will be mass layoffs, is decreased workload or project cancellations. Now you'd be like, Tiff, what? Why is that a sign? Well, this is a sign, and I've heard from many friends as well around this, as though because your managers or your managers' managers, whatever the case may be, depending on your company size, are so focused on what is to come, a lot of times there's no point, of course, to start new projects or wonder how you're doing because they know what is coming. Now, this is coming from the very top, so I'm not saying even your manager might know this, but the decrease in workload is another sign. Now, all these signs don't line up directly to layoffs. They might just mean other things going on in the company, but there are some ways you can identify that some things are shifting. Now, here's a question that I think has been on all of our minds. When will layoffs stop? There's no perfect answer as we can't look ahead into the future, but I do think they will slow down eventually. But I do believe, at least in the next 6 months, we will continue to see quite a bit of layoffs in tech. Now, what can you do to protect yourself or at least help yourself in these scenarios? Well, for one thing is don't panic. I know, I'm saying this to myself too, because it's one of those things where when it's happening to everyone else around you, you start to panic. The reality is it's out of your control. Do the best you can at work. Don't kill yourself at work, meaning because this is all going on, I'm telling you, if you put in an extra 5 hours in the evening after an 8-hour day or anything like that, it's not going to make a difference whether you stay or go. Some of the most talented people have been let go in these scenarios. It's not about you, it's such a bigger issue at hand. And I'm saying this because I need to hear this as well, taking it back to myself as someone who gets anxious really easy, but it's not about us. Just remember that. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope if it left you with anything is that you're not alone in these feelings of uncertainty or just feeling that uneasiness, even if your company is definitely or most likely not going to be doing layoffs, and you know that in your hearts. It's totally normal to have these feelings, and I think the biggest thing is you're not alone. I got you, I'm here with you. I think we all experience these things. I just really hope that having insight into some of these statistics, whether they are positive or maybe a bit negative, will help you at least have some facts, because there are so many news outlets that really cling to these headlines and just run with them. I mean, what sells better than fear? Nothing. And the reality is you just need to take a step back, analyze your situation, and if you're anything like me, just remember it's not about you. And I hope that brings you some peace. I don't know if that's gonna bring you the opposite, but for me, it brings peace, especially as someone who, always wants to put your best foot forward at work, not sounding cheesy, but you honestly give it your all and you give it everything you can. To have those fears or those feelings of uneasiness about everything going on right now in the tech industry sucks. I mean, it's like we give it our best and this is what happens, but I do promise you it will get better. Things will work out as they are meant to be. It's just we gotta go through a bit of growing pains right now. And I know that's easier said than done as someone who hasn't had or gone through layoffs personally, so I know you're probably sitting here, if you have, being like, Tiff, what are you talking about? But I just wanted to shed some really candid light into how I'm feeling and If anyone else is feeling this way too, I got you and we are not alone. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this very candid video. It's literally very last minute that I'm filming it just because it was speaking to me that I was like, we need to speak about this. So anyways, leave down in the comments other videos you want to see, and I gotta go eat dinner now. Bye.